gold! Bring it out!
And blood on the water. Now,
Today, we're going to pull on a single thread of history that connects a lost empire, a legendary pirate, and one of the most powerful emperors the world has ever seen. It's a wild story about how a river of gold flowing from one side of the planet could spark a massive crisis on the other, with consequences that literally rippled across the entire globe. So, let's dive in.
It sounds like the beginning of some wild riddle, doesn't it? A city built on water, a pirate who became the most wanted man on Earth, and a ruler whose personal wealth made all of Europe look poor. But here's the thing, these aren't separate stories. They're all chapters in the exact same epic tale, and they're linked by a river of stolen gold that caused chaos wherever it went. So how did the collapse of one empire light the fuse for a crisis in another halfway across the world? Well, that's the puzzle we're about to piece together.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off in a world of wonders, the incredible empires of the Americas before the Europeans showed up. Then, we'll follow the lure of gold that brought it all crashing down. From there, that river of treasure leads us to blood on the water and the rise of a pirate king. His greatest prize? Well, that's going to provoke an emperor's wrath and spark a global crisis. And finally, we'll explore the echoes of that empire and what this insane chain of events can teach us today.
To really get this story, we have to go back in time. I mean, way back, before the pirates, before the Spanish treasure ships, to a world that was completely unique. You see, the Americas were home to civilizations so advanced, so wealthy, and so complex, they were truly a world of wonders. And these were not some primitive societies. No, these were sprawling empires with achievements that rivaled, and in some cases, completely blew away what was happening in the old world.
And listen to this quote. It's not from some poet. These are the words of Hernán Cortés, the hardened Spanish conquistador who would eventually be the one to destroy the very city he's describing. When he and his men first saw the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, back in 1519, they were just speechless. It was like something out of a dream, a massive city of 250,000 people that looked like it was floating on a lake, all connected by these giant causeways. It was bigger, it was cleaner, and frankly, it was more magnificent than any city in Europe at the time.
And their brilliance wasn't just in architecture. The Aztecs built these ingenious floating farms, chinampas, to feed their enormous population. They had universal education for all kids, rich or poor, where they learned everything from astronomy to ethics. Further south, the Inca were performing complex brain surgery with pretty good success rates. You look at places like Pumapunku, and they were cutting and moving 150-ton stones with such incredible precision, you can't even fit a razor blade between them. And the craziest part? They did all of this without the wheel, or horses, or oxen. It was a world built purely on human ingenuity.
But for all their incredible achievements in science and society, these empires had one thing that would ultimately become their curse. It was a yellow metal they saw as sacred, a beautiful gift from the gods. But to the strangers arriving from across the ocean, it was something else entirely. It was the ultimate currency of power, of ambition, and of pure, uncut greed.
The amount of wealth the Spanish stumbled upon is almost impossible for us to even wrap our heads around. When Cortés and his small crew took the Aztec Emperor Montezuma hostage, they demanded an insane ransom: fill a huge room once with gold and twice with silver. The Aztec nobles actually did it, stripping their temples and palaces. But it didn't save their emperor. All it did was confirm the Spaniards' wildest fantasies and seal the empire's doom. It proved the legends of a city of gold were real, and now they were going to take it all.
So, you have to ask, how did a few hundred Spaniards take down an empire of millions? Well, they had a secret weapon, and her name was La Malinche. She was an Aztec noble who'd been sold into slavery, a brilliant linguist who spoke Nahuatl, Mayan, and then quickly learned Spanish. She became way more than just a translator. She was Cortés's cultural interpreter, his advisor, his strategist. She understood the political rivalries and helped Cortés build alliances with other tribes who were sick of the Aztecs. Honestly, without her, Cortés would have been completely lost.
And the end, it came so fast, it's shocking. From the moment Cortés landed in 1519, it took just 2 years for that beautiful city of Tenochtitlan to fall. After a horrible 93-day siege that brought starvation and new diseases, the Aztec Empire was basically gone. A decade later, another conquistador, Pizarro, just copied the playbook down south and brought down the Inca Empire. In little more than 10 years, 2 of the most powerful empires on the planet were broken, and all their unimaginable wealth began its long journey across the Atlantic.
Now, this sudden, massive transfer of wealth absolutely changed the world. Spain became the richest nation on Earth overnight. But when you start sending fleets of ships packed with gold across a huge ocean, you're essentially creating a giant floating buffet. It turned the sea into a hunting ground, and it gave rise to a whole new kind of predator. It kicked off what we now call the Golden Age of Piracy.
Okay, it's really important to get the distinction here because the line gets blurry. A privateer was basically a pirate with a permission slip. An English captain could get a license from the Queen that said, hey, you're allowed to go attack and rob Spanish ships. It was a way for countries to wage war on the cheap. But a pirate, they answered to nobody. They attacked any ship from any country. And yeah, you better believe that when the official wars ended, a lot of those privateers just kept right on doing what they were good at.
And here's the paradox of the pirate world. Even though these guys were criminals living outside the law, life on a pirate ship was often way more democratic and orderly than on a navy or merchant ship. They lived by a strict set of rules, their pirate code. Every single crewman got a vote on big decisions. The loot was divided up in surprisingly fair ways. There were rules against gambling and fighting on the ship. It was this bizarre, brutal, but highly organized floating republic of outlaws. So for decades, these pirates are terrorizing the Spanish shipping lanes. But the ultimate prize, the single biggest heist in history, wasn't going to be a Spanish galleon. Oh no. It would mean sailing halfway around the world to hit an empire that was even richer than Spain, an empire whose wealth was the envy of the entire planet. And this, my friends, is where our story takes a really dramatic turn.
The scale of this new target is it's mind-boggling. In the late 1600s, the Mughal Empire in India was the undisputed economic superpower of the world, period. Under Emperor Aurangzeb, its economy was bigger than all of Europe's combined. It produced a quarter of everything made and grown on Earth. The Mughal court was legendary. We're talking walls studded with gems, thrones made of solid gold. This wasn't just another kingdom. It was the global center of wealth.
Every year, a giant convoy of Mughal ships would sail to Arabia for trade and to carry pilgrims. The crown jewel of this whole fleet was a ship called the Ganj-i-Sawai. Its name literally means exceeding treasure, and that was not an exaggeration. In September of 1695, it was heading back to India, loaded with 52 million rupees in gold and silver. And one pirate captain, an Englishman named Henry Every, decided he was going to take it.
To put this into perspective for you, just a few years earlier, a single pirate raid on an Indian ship netted loot worth over $1 billion in today's money. $1 billion. And the Ganj-i-Sawai was known to be even richer. Taking this ship wouldn't just make you wealthy, it would make you one of the richest people on the planet. Henry Every wasn't just planning a robbery, he was planning the heist of the century.
And he pulled it off. Every High and his pirate fleet ambushed the Ganj-i-Sawai, and they took it. What happened next was a brutal, days-long nightmare of looting and violence. But the robbery itself, that was just the beginning. The fallout from this one pirate attack was about to ignite an international crisis, one that threatened to bring the entire global trading system to its knees and provoke the wrath of the world's most powerful man.
When word got back to Emperor Aurangzeb, his reaction was swift and absolutely furious. He wasn't just angry about the stolen gold, he was enraged by the horrific reports of what happened to the pilgrims on board. And since the pirate was English, he blamed England. Immediately, he shut down the English East India Company's trading posts. He had their officials arrested and thrown in jail. And he made it perfectly clear, find this pirate and pay me back, or the English are done in India. Forever.
Well, the East India Company and the English government completely panicked. This one pirate had put their entire global enterprise at risk, so they launched something the world had never seen before, a truly global manhunt. They put a massive bounty on Henry Every's head, and then they declared him Hostis Humani Generis, a Latin legal term that means an enemy of all mankind. It meant that anyone, anywhere in the world, could legally hunt him down and kill him. This was the biggest, most far-reaching manhunt in history up to that point.
And so the stage was set. You have a pirate king on the run, a furious emperor demanding justice, and the entire English Empire scrambling to clean up the mess. This final chapter isn't just about what happened next. It's about connecting all the dots and understanding the powerful, hidden legacy of these events. And here is where it all comes together. That story that started with the Spanish lust for Aztec gold, it didn't end there. That flood of treasure created the perfect conditions for the Golden Age of Piracy. The skills and the ships that were perfected hunting Spanish galleons were then turned on a new target. And that one act of piracy nearly destroyed England's relationship with its most important trading partner, the Mughal Empire. It's a perfect, brutal example of global blowback, how actions in one part of the world can have explosive, unforeseen consequences in another.
You know, there's a powerful metaphor for this whole thing in the story of the Aztec downfall itself. There was a night when the Aztecs rose up and drove the Spanish out of their city. It's called La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. As the conquistadors were fleeing, many of them, refusing to leave their stolen loot behind, were so weighed down by the gold stuffed in their armor that they fell into the lake and drowned. The very treasure they killed for became the anchor that dragged them to their deaths.
So what happened to our main characters in the end? Well, Hernán Cortés, the conqueror of Mexico, died a bitter old man back in Spain, feeling totally unappreciated. The mountains of Aztec and Inca gold were melted down and scattered across the globe, funding wars but bringing little peace to anyone. And Henry Every, the pirate king, despite being the target of the world's first global manhunt, he and his treasure just vanished. He was never, ever found. This incredible chain of events leaves us with a timeless question, doesn't it? It shows how the desperate hunger for gold in one century gave birth to the lawless pirates of the next, and how those pirates could threaten the very foundations of global empires. It really forces us to ask, how do the appetites of one era, whether it's for gold or power or something else, create the monsters and the crises of the next? It's a pattern that we see over and over again in history, and it's definitely worth remembering. If you found this historical connection as fascinating as I did, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more incredible explainers like this. Thanks for watching.